A local dentist, Dr. LaJean Morrow Smith, also a personal friend of the show, of mine, and then also Matt's wife, Hannah, works in LaJean's office. Mm-hmm. But the entire office and Dr. LaJean being hailed heroes after saving a man's life. Good morning, LaJean.
Good morning.
Hi. So, LaJean, you're standing in your dental office, Premier Dental.
Yes.
When all of a sudden you hear and feel a humongous, like the loudest bang, and it physically shook your building, and you walk outside and you see a man laying in the parking lot, right?
He was laying in the grass between my office and Dr. Mark Cayley's office, which is the orthodontist that is my neighbor.
Oh, tell us what happened.
So it was about 3 p.m., and I was waiting for one of my patients to get numb so I could do some dental work on them. And I was standing up front talking to my front office manager, Michelle, and we heard this amazingly loud bang, and it shook our building. We're like, did someone just drive a truck into our office, or did a building just explode? We weren't quite sure what happened. So we immediately run outside the door, and there's a bunch of smoke, and we look over, and I see a man's feet laying beside a bush because his body was kind of blocked by a bush. I didn't know immediately what happened. Michelle, her husband, is an electrician, and she yelled, did this man get electrocuted? And his grandson worked with him, and his grandson had started dialing 911. But his grandson was kind of very distraught, and so he ran over and gave his phone to Michelle, and he's like, I can't do this. I can't do anything. So I immediately go into what I've been trained to do my whole life, is to, help save lives if possible. And so we assessed the scene. By this time, Dr. Cayley and some of his staff had came outside as well, and they were standing there, and, we weren't sure if there was like live ground wires or what was going on. So we kind of had to assess the scene safety, and his partner from work ran over and started shaking his body. So I knew at that moment that it was safe. So we kind of assessed the scene, knew it was safe. So I ran over, and Dr. Cayley was there too. And so we can't let it go without noticing him as well, because he definitely stepped in, was, my partner in terms of providing the CPR for the patient. So thank you, Dr. Cayley, for your help as well. But we checked for a pulse, checked for breathing. There was nothing. The man's eyes were open, and his eyes were kind of bulging and lifeless. He had his mouth open and coagulated blood in his mouth, which kind of is common with an electrocution. His skin was completely gray, and you just knew there was no life in his body at that moment. So I immediately looked at Hannah and Monica, who had came outside as well. I'm so thankful to have such an amazing staff who were able to step in and kind of put the adrenaline and emotions aside to kind of help. So told them we need to go get our AED, we need to get our crash bag. I do IV sedation at my office, so we kind of we are trained in advanced cardiac life support, which is a step up from basic life support, because since we do surgeries and things like that, we have to be more prepared. So we have a kind of a lot more armamentarium in our office than the average person would. So Dr. Cayley's staff went and got their AED, we got our AED. We got an AED put on him and immediately started CPR. It alerted us that he needed a shock, so we performed a defibrillation on him and then jumped in for compressions and bag valve mask respirations. And we did about three rounds of CPR, and we got his pulse back and his breathing back. And about that time, the EMS arrived, and he was alive again, and we were so thankful for that. The EMS kind of, asked us, what happened. We kind of told them what happened, and they were like, thank you guys for being here. You probably just saved this man's life.
Wow, that's incredible.
I have a question. We just went through a little CPR, or I did a while back. It's hard to remember. I got to refresh my memory. And it's kind of odd to think that the person just got electrocuted, that we need to shock him again. You know what I'm saying? But with the AED, we were taught that this is one of the biggest life-saving pieces of equipment in an emergency.
100%.
And I mean, it's like literally every home should probably have one eventually, or every business.
100%.
Sure. When you did the AED and the shock happened, was there a heartbeat that came back, or the AED didn't work and you had to continue the CPR? That's what I was curious about, because you said you had to do CPR after that as well.
Yes. So the protocol is you start CPR during the resuscitation attempt while the AED is being put in place. You stop CPR while it analyzes the heart rhythm, and then if it has some sort of heart rhythm that is shockable. So a lot of big misconception that people have is that you're what you call asystolic, meaning that you're an asystole, there's no heartbeat at all, and that's when a shock happens. But really, when you need a shock is when your heart is in a rhythm that is not a normal rhythm, and the majority of the time that's going to be like a V-fib or something like that. So the heart is trying to work, but it's not. So there's still electrical impulses. So the electrocution for him went through his body, which sent his heart into chaos, and we have to reshock it to kind of reset it, almost like kind of turning your phone off and turning it back on because it's frozen or a computer or something like that.
I'm glad you said it that way because
Yes.
I'm like, you're way too smart. I'm like, so he was dead, right? So he was dead, and you reset the phone. Got it.
And if you're just joining us, by the way, we have on the phone Dr. LaJean Morrow Smith, who's a close personal friend of ours, and also Matt's wife, Hannah, works in Premier Dental, which is LaJean's office. And LaJean, you walked out of your office, and I mean, first you felt and heard a crash so loud that obviously it catches your attention, and when you feel it in the building, and then they walk outside to see a man who was
dead.
He had been blown off of his truck. Is that right?
So they were hanging a sign for one of the neighboring offices, and it's been really windy. Everyone knows that the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And so they were raising the sign with the boom of the truck. And so the boom of the truck, I guess, got too close to a power line. The power line blew into the boom, and then it literally exploded him backwards.
Oh my God.
So he fell off?
He wasn't on the truck. He was touching the truck, and the electricity that hit the power line and the sign blew him backwards.
Oh my gosh.
And so he was laying in the grass off of the road, but the truck was on the road. So it blew him back quite a bit.
And LaJean, you said, and this part's a little bit graphic, just in case, maybe you don't want to hear this part, but you did share that there was a hole in his foot, in this man's foot.
Yeah, so the electricity, his left foot was completely burned, and then on the bottom of his right foot he had a black hole where the electricity had went out of his foot.
Because he's basically creating the ground, I'm assuming, correct?
Like a conduit.
For sure. Yes. So it seems that from the understanding I have after talking with his wife and him, that maybe the electricity came in his left foot, which caused it to burn. He actually has lost a couple toes and just had a skin graft done yesterday on his foot, surgery. He's in Baptist at the moment. So it went in the left, went through the body, and came out the right.
Wow.
Whoa.
So,
That's crazy.
And so were other people around this truck and he just happened to be touching it, or was he by himself?
he was with another his partner on the job, as well as his grandson was assisting. So he told me that the last thing and only thing he remembers from that day is telling his, kind of throwing his grandson out of the way, because he knew that the boom was getting too close to the power line, and he has no other recollection after that point.
Dang. And so so this man who died, he was dead, and then you did CPR and the AED and all that. When he was conscious again, was he able to talk before he left, or he just?
No. If you were to meet this man, you will understand his reaction. The EMS workers and the paramedics were trying to kind of get him on the backboard and strap him down to kind of get him to the hospital as fast as possible. And he started kind of grunting and growling and trying to get up, because he's a man's man who just wasn't.
I die
really
all the time.
aware of what's going on.
You ain't died before.
So he started kind of fighting the EMS workers, because he's like, "What is going on? I don't really understand." But he wasn't
sure. Like 1 minute, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he sees a bright light and he's going to the next. I mean, he's probably extraordinarily confused.
I'm sure.
Wow.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I think the most obviously the fact that you had the wherewithal, because we talk all the time, LaJean, on the show about
forget it.
like how when there is any sort of situation where we have to react, or there's an emergency or something has happened, people fall down in front of us. And I think Jared and I shared that we're freezers.
I freeze right away.
And then for some awful reason, I start to laugh. I don't, it's like, I can't help.
Gosh.
But the fact that you are in this situation and just react, I mean, everybody just reacts. And the fact that he has this happen to him in front of a place where you have the AED, you have the training. It's almost as if it was.
You were there at the time.
Yes, the right time, the right moment. Like God's work was right there. It was
100%. I'm a true believer that you never want to have to use your the skills that you learn. But I know in that moment that God placed him on our street. If it's going to happen and it has to happen, it's going to happen here, and it's going to happen in front of this place where we can save him. So I have a friend who's an ER doctor at Cone. And so she reached out to me because that night, I had Hannah after this situation happened. I had to go back and start working. I had a patient in the chair.
Oh my God.
He actually came outside after, because if you were on our street, every office on our street, everyone was outside.
Yeah.
Fleet plumbers near my office, those workers, I went in there the other day and they came outside and they know who I am. So they were like, kind of asked me to explain what happened and stuff. And so they had all came outside all the way down to the end of the street where Benjamin Parkway is. Those offices heard it and they all came outside. So, I mean, it was that loud that an entire street of people were outside. So I can't tell you how many people were outside watching, but everyone was there. And so, it was just one of the craziest situations. But
absolutely.
Did it knock the power out? Because
it did not. But it blew the tires of the truck, and that's what the loud boom was. Is that the electricity hit?
Oh my gosh!
The tires exploded on the truck. So
wow.
It was, and also the fire. The next day, the owner of the sign company came to our office and was like, we're just so thankful, and asked if there was anything they needed to replace for what we used during the resuscitation. And then the next day after that, the firemen who were on call came in to kind of say thank you. And so the fire chief said in his 35 years, he's been on, a dozen calls for electrocutions, and that this was the first one that he had a survival. And so kind of crazy that happened. But the point I was going to make earlier is one of my friends is an ER physician. And so she had said that I had reached out to her. I had Hannah go give the grandson get his phone number because I had to go back in and start working. And somehow the numbers got mixed up. So I had been texting his grandson to kind of find out, because 24 to 48 hours after an electrocution are the most critical times, because you can go back into an arrhythm in the heart at any point because of the damage that it puts on the heart. And so we kind of were, wondering if he was going to still survive, even though we got him resuscitated. But so my friend, the ER doctor, had reached out and, was kind of like, had this not happened on your street, this man would not be alive. And so I'm just so thankful that Dr. Kaylee was there to help step in and do the bag valve mask respirations. His staff helped get the AED from their office. My staff stepped in and did the thing. So it was a conjoined effort between the two offices, and I'm very thankful that it happened the way it did. And he's alive now. We are joined for life. I've visited him in the hospital a few times, and his wife and daughters are very thankful that he's here, and he's thankful that he's here. And like I said, we're now connected for the rest of our lives.
Wow.
What
my gosh.
A real life incredible story. And a side note, LaJean, in the future, if Squid has a story to tell on the air, can he just tell it to you, and then you come on the air and tell it?
You tell it, yes.
Great detail, easy to understand.
Answered all of our questions.
You didn't use 100 times.
No. I'm down with that too.
Yeah.
You tell it.
But that's like that's just how LaJean is. It's like you heard her herself say, "Yeah, I had to, go right back in and get right back to work." It's just
I've been
save
just
a
shaking
life
and
yeah.
knocking people's teeth out or whatever, being so nervous.
It's just a true testament to the type of person you are.
Thank you. That patient came outside and was watching the resuscitation. Like I was saying, everyone heard it. So he came outside. And the funny thing is I started turning around to go back inside, and he was like, "You're my dentist for life." He's like, "That's the most badass thing I've ever seen in my life." To me, it was just.
I don't know how you could have went back and
what I was
worked
called to do.
worked on teeth after you just were doing CPR. Then you have to go back and do a delicate removal of a cavity or something. I'd be like, "Oh my God!" It seems like I would be too disoriented or too distracted. My
shaking.
adrenaline would be running. How do you go back to?
Oh yeah, you're definitely shaking. It's definitely very. It was difficult to kind of get myself down, and this is the first time I've actually been able to talk about it without crying. Just because when I close my eyes, I still see his face. He was laying there lifeless. But it's kind of crazy when you see from him laying there, like his skin completely gray. And then I'm sitting here doing chest compressions, and I can hear his ribs cracking as I'm doing this. And, you're thinking in your head, like, Lord, just let him please live. And so then you see when the EMS got there and put him on the backboard, and his skin is red and pink, and like he's got blood perfusing back through his body. It's literally I've told everyone this is the best and worst day that has happened in my career since I started. And to this day, I believe that because I still have the trauma of seeing that face, and I've seen him numerous times and see him smiling and laughing now. And, but it's still the trauma of that, seeing his face like that. So it definitely was hard for me to get back into work and do it, but you do what you got to do. I run a practice that is very busy, and we have to kind of, life continues on. And so that's kind of what
amazing.
happened. And
Yeah, and
in that moment, I didn't do it for any other reason than just I knew that this man had a family, and I wanted him to be able to go home to them. So.
yes, and LaJean, also you are a wife and a mother of twins and a great friend. I mean, she's got a lot
Yeah,
going on, and then
absolutely.
it's just saving a
your
life back to
friend
work.
sounds so much smarter than you, Katie.
I know. Well, that's why they do
No.
what they do, and this is
Well,
why
no,
I do what I do.
LaJean, yeah,
Even
it's true.
It's true, LaJean.
big
It's
boat
okay.
girl, same
You're
thing.
smarter than all of us. But,
Yeah.
It's okay.
All of us combined.
It's all right.
Your sister. No.
I'm just happy to know her. That's all I have to say.
and it is
I'm happy to know you too.
a
Love
sign
you.
of
I'm thankful for
intelligence
your friendship.
for Katie to surround herself with smart. We should all surround ourselves with smarter people.
Yeah.
And LaJean, it's probably good that we weren't your patients that day, knowing us. Be like, all right, I got a tooth to get filled here.
Yeah,
you
like
know?
my mouth is numb.
My mouth is numb.
I'm getting feeling back. You're gonna have to numb it again.
Can we speed up this life-saving thing? I gotta go home. All right, you're awesome. That
Love
was
you,
great.
LaJean. Love you.
Love
Thank
you too.
thank you
Love
for being
too.
a helper.
Thank you guys.
Great job.
For
Thank
sure.
you. Bye. Oh, sorry.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead. What were you
Work with us.
saying?
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
What were you
Sorry,
saying? Go
missed
ahead.
it.
I just said, Matt, thank you for letting your wife be so amazing and work with us.
Hey, thanks for
Aw.
taking care of her.
Yeah.
We always will, for sure.
Good time to ask for a raise now, man.
Oh my goodness, I just
Wow,
cannot
wow.
even imagine it. I really can't.
One thing that, because
Wow.
I heard the story from Hannah, like,
Yeah.
and she called me while she was at work, and normally she doesn't, because like LaJean said, they're so busy.
Mhm.
And the one thing that I kind of took from that didn't get brought up here was when the electricity went through his foot, and then because it has to leave your body too, where it went out, normally you end up losing a foot or a leg or something because the blood loss is so bad, but because the electricity almost cauterized his foot instantly when it left, that helped too.
Oh my!
They said
Wow.
that's not even something that happens every time. So it
Wow.
was like the hole was blown in his foot and then cauterized instantly by the electricity.
Dang.
And then saved his life.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
incredible.
It is an
Incredible.
incredible
We should try
story.
to get him on when he's feeling better.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd love to hear
Yes.
his experience with that as well.